are talking about the sights and sights of Turkey, places and things that we look at. And as a refresher, this is your map of the Eastern Mediterranean, and the big red dot is on Istanbul, which is the biggest city in Turkey, but not the capital. And Istanbul is on two continents, both Europe and Asia. And this is where our sites begin, in Istanbul at the Grand Bazaar. The Grand Bazaar is an amazing shopping mall in Istanbul. It covers 7.5 square acres. There are over 4,000 shops. There are 61 covered streets and over 91 million visitors come every year. And that boils down to between 250,000 and 400,000 visitors a day. Unbelievable. The construction began around 1450. You may remember that we touched upon the Ottomans conquering Istanbul and changing the Hagia Sophia from a Christian church into a mosque, and that happened in 1453. So apparently the Ottomans liked to shop, who knew? It actually was a place that they could sell the merchandise they brought back from China on the Silk Road. And we'll talk about that in a minute also. So as one can imagine, in all those years from 1450, it got a little bit out of shape. This is an aerial view. This is the roof of the Grand Bazaar before it was reconstructed. All shabbily-wabbly. One of the things I like about this picture, though, is that you can see the Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque, which we featured in part one. And then you get kind of oriented knowing that this is in the same part of Istanbul. And then we have the aerial view after the reconstruction. So everything is a lot neater and a lot tidier. This is one of the entrances, how you get in, because you know, once you're in, 61 covered streets, 7.5 acres. I think there's only 7 entrances. So you better keep track. I went shopping there twice. I didn't go very far inside the door, and I paid attention to every turn that I made. And this is a corridor, and it shows the windows. See up at the top? How there's windows in the dome ceiling. Those are the only windows in the Grand Bazaar. There's no other windows. Which led for many years to a number of fires, because they had to use fire to light, candles and oil lamps, and had a lot of fires. And plus there was an earthquake along the way that caused some of the reconstruction. So we see these, there's several streets that have this kind of ceiling and windows. And here are 2 Turks. Here are 2 vendors. The one on the left is selling carpets. The one on the right has got some food products. And I wanted to tell you some amazing things about these vendors. Things that to the average tourist you would never figure out. They speak like 5 languages. Can you imagine the countries that their customers come from? And they know where you are from before you have opened your mouth. They know what language you speak by the clothes you wear, the way you hold yourself, probably by your aftershave. And they greet each of your customers in the language that that customer speaks. And if you hadn't had this explained to you, you might not even think it was noteworthy. Because you speak English, they speak English. So I had no idea that they also speak 5 other languages, and they knew which one to use for you. I think that is a real skill that they have. They sell lanterns and spices. As you can imagine, it's a very beautiful place. Very exotic, very mystical. They sell pottery, and these balls, and I don't know what they're for, but there's 2 of them on that table over there if you want to look closer, that I bought at the Grand Bazaar. And many other things, including rugs and the ubiquitous evil eye. You can't be in Turkey for more than 20 minutes before somebody, probably your tour guide, gives you your first evil eye. It might be on a keychain. They are on everything. They are ancient. The original Turks were shamanic nomads. And they are supposedly used, or a talisman, to ward off evil. So there are a couple of them there on the blue table. After the service today, we're going to have show and tell, because all these things came from Turkey. So after our brief stop at the Grand Bazaar, we headed down the Silk Road. And the Silk Road was the name of a caravan because it came from China, right here, the home of silk. And this map, the red line shows the overland route between China, ending in Istanbul, I might add. And the blue line shows the sea route, the way it could be done on water, and all those goods that they brought back, all those thousands of miles on those camels. And I do believe a lot of them were sold at the Grand Bazaar. Now, in the 1970s, synthesizer music became popular, especially among the New Age types. And there is still a synthesizer artist named Kitaro. He's Japanese. He was one of the first. And he produced an album called The Silk Road. And the theme song on it became my favorite song. It was my favorite album. Fast forward 30 years, and I was on a tour bus in Turkey on the Silk Road, and the tour leader pulls out this old cassette tape. It has a battery-operated tape recorder and starts playing Kitaro and the Silk Road. And I had a moment. I had come home. Along the Silk Road were what they call caravanserais. I spelled it there for you. I mean, you can't believe that it's pronounced just like it looks, but it is. Caravanserais is a camel motel. And these are places that caravans and all their goods and their camels had a place to stay if they needed one en route wherever they were going. This is the interior. I took most of the pictures that we're seeing today, by the way. And this is how you load your camel. You know, camels are kind of tall, and then they load them, they pile them really high on the back. So the camel would walk inside that building that has doors fore and aft, and the loaders would carry the goods up those stairs that you see, and then from the top of the camel, attach them and load the camel on. And it was in the caravanserai where they had to unload the camels and let everybody rest, and then load them back up and be on their way. And that is another view of this interior of the caravanserai. I've got a couple of photos of the same area displayed here. So exciting, so foreign. So now we're going to look at this map because there are several more places we're talking about, 3 more, and they're all shown on this map. So we'll get oriented to start with. This triangle, up at the top is Istanbul. And then if you go down to the dot that's right under the word Turkey, that's Cappadocia, as it's pronounced here, but it's pronounced Cappadocia in Turkey. And as you head west, there's Konya, the home of Rumi. And further west, here on the coast, is Ephesus. And those are the places that we're talking about today and have slides for. You'll notice they're all on the east side of Turkey. Our tour did not take us anywhere near Iran or Iraq or Syria, which border Turkey on the west side. Kind of just kept us over here where it's safer. So we begin with Cappadocia. People who've been to Turkey always talk about Cappadocia. And they are amazed with it. And you'll see why from the pictures. It is famous. One of the things they've done now to modernize and popularize it for the tourist trade is have a lot of hot air balloon events. So that's why I chose this picture that has some hot air balloons in it. And this is kind of a classic picture of Cappadocia. Look for the windows. These are houses. People lived in them. People built entire cities underground. They built churches underground because there were periods of persecution when it was a good thing to hide your church. And the explanation I got, and I've checked it out since, is that this rock is called tufa, T-U-F-A. It's a volcanic rock. And as it happened in Cappadocia, after they had the volcano erupt, it snowed, and that hardened the outside of the structures. But the inside was still so soft that you just scoop it out. Scoop it out. And they call a lot of these structures fairy chimneys. And they think that it looks magical, and it does. This is an underground city. Some of them are quite big. And this is what they call a condominium. All right, so this was a little tour of Cappadocia. There's a lot to be seen there. There's a lot of camels. They have the 2-hump camels. And if you want, you can pay to have your picture taken with them. So then we move further west to Konya. Konya was the home of Rumi. Rumi was a 13th century, it means in the 1200s, Sufi poet and mystic. He was born in Afghanistan, but he lived most of his life in Konya, and this building in the background is where he's buried. That is a museum and his tomb. Rumi is responsible for whirling dervishes. It was his teaching. He brought Sufism into Islam. And Sufism is the mystical branch of Islam, like the Kabbalah is the mystical branch of Judaism. And Rumi is responsible for the development of much of all of that. Have you ever gone to see whirling dervishes? See them perform is not quite the right word because it's such a religious thing. I saw them in Kansas City. Now, Konya, of course, is a tourist site. So in addition to our beautiful picture of whirling dervishes, we have this one that's on top of a gas station. And this one that's on top of, looks like an open air market, like a flea market. This is a plate from Konya, and this is my very own whirling dervish. Rumi's poetry is very difficult to translate. Whew. And now we're going to Ephesus. To Mary's house. I put Ephesus so you can see how it's spelled there. And this is the sign that says, "This way to Mary's house." And it's on the path with the statue of the Virgin Mary. Well, now, you might say, I didn't know that the Virgin Mary lived in Turkey. And apparently, she visited Turkey with John, one of the disciples, on a mission, and stayed there for a while. And then they were able, years later, to locate a house with a freshwater spring that matched the description that somebody made. And Mary really lived in Jerusalem. We might call this her summer home. And that's what the house looks like, that weird tree growing out of the front of it. And these are taps to get water from the freshwater spring. I have been to many sites of apparitions of the Virgin Mary. I took a Divine Feminine tour of France and went to some of the most famous ones. And one of the earmarks of an apparition of the Virgin Mary is that there will be a freshwater spring come into being. And if that didn't happen, they don't think it was a real apparition. Then what happens is, at least in France, they build a church by the site. They put a statue, and in the gift shop of the church, they sell bottles for you to collect the water in. It's kind of like, they can't really sell the water. That would be a sacrilege. But if you want to take some water home with you, you've got a nice bottle. I probably still do have like a liter of holy water from one of these sites on my closet shelf for several years. Now, I don't think that this spring came into being because the living Virgin Mary visited it. But I thought it was so interesting that it was a prominent connection when it was connected so much to the apparitions of Mary in France. They also had this wall where you could write your prayer requests, and that was like a grating, a metal grating that you could stick your paper behind. Only nobody had any paper, they were all using toilet paper, and that's what. Now I'll tell you, if the Turks were smart, in their gift shop, they would be selling paper for people to write their prayer requests on this wall by Mary's house. So that was Mary's house in Ephesus. And I want to talk about Ephesus some more. I'm just going to put this slide up while I do this. The tour I took of Turkey was called In the Footsteps of the Apostle Paul. And if you read the New Testament, you might read, Paul's letter to the Ephesians, to the Corinthians, to the Romans, to the Colossians. He went on missions. He went to convert people to Christianity. And if you see a map of where he went, they're all on the coast. It starts, he goes around Greece, he goes around Turkey. And so Ephesus is on the coast of Turkey. It's on the Aegean Sea. A lot of people have been to Ephesus because the cruise ships on the Mediterranean stop there. It's a nice port of call. It really adds a lot. They say that Paul went to Asia Minor. Do you know where Asia Minor is? It's Turkey. Exactly. And when I went to Ephesus, what I saw was, shrines to Artemis, which was a Greek god. Artemis in the Roman pantheon was Diana. And then when I heard about Paul going to Corinth, which was in Greece, it was the site of the temple to Aphrodite, who was Venus. And remember, his purpose was conversion. So in today's market, they talk about your target audience. Who are your target audiences? Well, you go where the competition has a foothold, and you try to kind of undermine that foothold. And I thought that it was very interesting that Ephesus was one of those as Corinth, and I'm sure many of the other stops along his missions were planned that way. The footsteps of Paul, this tour, I went away with the feeling that when you've seen one ruin, you've seen them all. We went to ruin after ruin after ruin, and one of the very last stops it took was to Troy. I mean, Troy, I went to Troy. I didn't even get off the bus. I said, I don't think there's anything here but rocks, you know. So I would do it differently. I have my own plan of a tour of Turkey, and I would do some things different. So this was part 2 of our Turkey Featurette. Stay tuned next week for part 3 when we talk about Ataturk, and that is fascinating.